All right, everybody, we're going to be talking about slope. We're going to be talking about all different kinds of things, writing equations. At the top here, you got 3 pictures that we've all seen before this year. Oh, now you got it. We can see it in the background there. Perfect. This first one, slope, intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b. In particular today, we're talking about slope more than intercept, I'd say. Let's make sure that the m, which comes in front of x, but does not actually include x. We had a couple people that never quite got onto this when we were doing the test, Josh, that the slope does not include x. Then we've got the 4 different types of slope. If you memorize positives and negative slopes, positives go up and negatives go down, that can help you get rid of some bad answer choices really quickly, but it's not incredibly useful. And then I would say that 0 slope versus undefined slope is definitely very useful. On the SOL test, they will have a question that involves 0 slope, that involves undefined slope. And I'll say that after the SOL test, when we all meet back in class on the next Monday, and you're looking around and thinking, ooh, I wonder how they did. Ooh, I wonder how the test was. If you ask your friends over the weekend, how was the test? The kids that say, you know what, the test was pretty easy, I'm sure I passed, those kids probably know the difference between 0 and undefined. So if you're thinking to yourself right now, I don't know the difference between a 0 slope, which is flat, like the flat ground that has 0 slope, and you can't tell the difference between 0 slope and undefined slope, which is up and down like a cliff that you could never walk up, you could never drive up. Maybe if you learn those 2 things, that's the little bit extra you need to prepare for the SOL test. The last thing we have over here is our slope, which uses the letter m, which we say is rise over run. And then there's this slope formula. Now, if you've learned this in my class, we like this with parentheses. I like to put parentheses on the y's and on the x's. I feel like it solves a lot of our negatives if we have those negative issues. And so we're going to start with a couple questions all talking about slope. The first one, it says find the slope of the graph below. And this question is giving us these 2 dots. And we can use these 2 dots to find the slope. We don't have much else to go off of. They have not given us a line. All we have is a picture of a graph. And so with these 2 dots, we can think about slope being the letter m, which is rise over run. And so we can try to count how much do we rise and how much do we run. And my strategy is always to make sure you count up. So I would recommend that you start here at the low end and that you end here at the high end. Anybody in class know how much we need to rise to get from one dot to the other? 2, pretty easy. You got to count to 2. 1, 2. Nice job. And then how much do we need to run to get to the end? 1, 2, 3. That's exactly right. 2 over 3. Let's make sure we talk about if you move to the right, is that a positive 3 or a negative 3? To the right, it should be positive. Nice job. And before we lock in that answer, it's also a good idea to try it out and see if it needs to simplify at all. 2 divided by 3, 2 divided by 3. So perfect. That's the answer. And this is a question that hopefully we get right on the SOL test. Up next, question number 2 is basically the same thing, except for question number 2 has not given you those perfect little dots to count from. And you have to do your own search for where are those perfect intersections. So what you're looking at is this little grid in the background where you have all of these little crosses, and you're looking for a place where the line goes right through the middle of those little intersections. So something like this would be pretty good. My handwriting's not perfect. Maybe I'm a little low there, but still. So On our actual line here, which I'll do in green, does anybody see any places where this green line goes right perfectly through the intersection? I heard a couple people say 1, a couple people say 3. It needs to be a coordinate. So I need something with a comma. I heard somebody say 1, 1. That is a valid spot. I heard somebody say 0, 3. That is a valid spot. And there are a couple more. -1, 5, I heard. That's nice. 2, -1. That's nice. And at this point, we don't need, like, all we need is 2. But it's just a good idea if your brain is starting to recognize a pattern. And your brain is thinking, oh, all I have to do to go from one dot to the next is up 2 over 1. Guess what the slope's going to be? It's based off how you get from one dot to the other. There's one more down here. Now, in order to identify the slope, you just need to pick any 2 dots. We could pick all different combinations of these. You just need to make sure that you go from one to the other. So let's do this little one down here in the corner. And if you're already doing a different one, that's fine. How much do we have to go up? I'm going up 2. And how much do I have to go to the side? 1. And I heard somebody say -1 because going to the left does make it negative. And then let's use DESMOS to identify what is 2 divided by -1. -2. There's our slope. It is -2. Now, just to prove it to you, and you don't have to write this down necessarily, what if I did it from these 2 positions instead? It would still give me the same answer. I need to rise up 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, that's a different number, but I need to run to the side 1, 2 in the negative direction. And I'm sure you're ahead of me already. What is 4 divided by -2? It's the same thing. The answer is -2. Doesn't matter where you start, where you end, as long as it's at those perfect intersections, you will always be getting the same slope. Okay. Down here, we are missing the picture. So we don't get the picture. We need to figure out the slope. I'll give you 3 different ways to do this question, okay? My least favorite, okay, the one that I don't like, type it in, -7, 4, and type in the other one, 9, -2. And DESMOS can certainly make the picture for you. And if you get the picture, then I guess you can count how much do you need to go up and how much you need to go to the side. But I'll tell you this, that's not a super easy thing to do if they're a very long way away. The other thing, and this is the real reason that I don't like this method, is that if you zoom in or if you zoom out, DESMOS will change the grid on you, right? Because DESMOS thinks, I don't need those tiny grids, and DESMOS will change it up. Obviously, you can't count, up 1 here because there's only one big grid. So if you are desperate to use the counting method, you have to be very careful that your grid is correct, right? Over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. When I get to 5, it says 5. If you're zoomed in too far and you count, over 1, 2, 3, 4, but it says 4. I just don't like this. I don't like counting it and doing it this way. Option number 2 is the slope formula that we have on the top of our worksheet here. Y minus y divided by x minus x. So we can type that in DESMOS with the divide key, parentheses minus parentheses, parentheses minus parentheses. Make sure that the y number is the top number. So that y value needs to be on top. So this 4 is the top. 4 on top, -7 on the bottom. And then the -2 needs to be on top with the 9 on bottom.
Shouldn't it be the x on top?
Nope, because remember we're doing rise over run, and it's the y that takes us up and down. Look, we got it right here, Brandon. Y is on top. Now we get a decimal, turn it into a fraction, and it says negative 3 divided by 8. Now, I said I'd give you 3 different ways to do this. This is a strategy that I didn't know if the students would like very much, and today people have really been liking this strategy and been using it quite a bit. We're going to use, from last week, DESMOS to create the perfect line. Table, -7 is the x number, and 4 is the y number. 9 is the x number, and -2 is the y number. There's my 2 dots. And then we're going to use that weird y1 squiggly line mx1 plus b. Get my head out the way. And DESMOS is going to create that perfect line for you. And DESMOS is going to tell you what is the m supposed to be. What is the b supposed to be. And so you can just take this, and that's your answer right there. It's the m that goes through the 2 points. Now you're going to have to memorize what the linear line, but remember, it's just y equals mx plus b, except for you put a 1 after the y and x, and you put a squiggly line instead of the equal sign. No matter what, the answer you get is negative 0.375 fraction -3 over 8. So there's 3 different ways to do it. Count it, formula, or use DESMOS to make the line. So when we get to number 4, what method do you feel like you like best? Which method do you want to use? Anybody want to pick? The second one, which is the slope formula. So let's do that. Fraction, parentheses minus parentheses, bottom, parentheses minus parentheses. Put the y on top, -2, with the x on bottom 8. The y on top 1 with the x on bottom 8. And I'm getting undefined. Listen, if you type it in and you type it in correctly, that's the answer. DESMOS is going to tell it to you. Undefined. And that's not a huge surprise. I see that we have 8 and 8. I see that we have 8 minus 8. 8 minus 8 is going to be 0, and you cannot divide by 0. If I saw these as a picture, 8 comma -2 and 8 comma 1, this picture is a straight up and down dots. They're going to make a straight up and down line. And so it all makes sense, undefined. What about the last question? Did anybody already do number 5? Let's do number 5 with tables and the other one. It doesn't take that long, really. Let's make sure our phones are up. I got a couple people sneaking under the desk all the time now. 5 comma negative. Oh, let's get rid of that comma. Just a 5 and -3. Then we've got a 0 and a -3. Then we're just going to type y equals mx plus b, except for we're going to put those little 1s on there. And we get the m is 0. Again, that makes sense because my line looks flat. It goes through both of these dots. I think it looks great. The slope of this one is 0. Okay, we're doing pretty well. There's 10 questions and we just finished number 5. So we're almost, in theory, we're halfway done. The bottom 3 questions are super fast. So here's the middle 2. Here's what I'll tell for you. Here's where I would refocus if I was you, okay? We're going to talk about parallel and perpendicular. If I was you, I do my best. Focus in a little bit. Parallel slopes mean same slope. They're like twins. They're like clones. Perpendicular slopes are big opposites. You have to flip and switch. It's called the opposite reciprocal. It's upside down and it's different. So, question number 6 is one of the easiest questions on the whole SOL test. Find the slope of the given equation If we have y equals 4x minus 1, what is the parallel slope? Does parallel mean same or opposite? Parallel means same. And just like I heard Misair say, the answer is just 4, right? You're like an alien spaceship who's just going to abduct the 4. Wow, 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 wow. Abduct the 4, and the answer is it's 4. Now make sure no x. There is no x on that 4. All we need is the slope, which is the m. I know there's an x right after the 4. I know there's an x right inside my tractor beam or whatever, but it's just a 4. Okay. Now this next question, I'll be honest with you. This next question is probably the hardest one that we're going to do today. This is a question that I would classify as a medium difficulty. And this is also a question that you are most likely to ask me during the notes, or I guess the classwork today. Okay, there's a question like this on the classwork. We want to get the perpendicular slope, which we know means different sign upside down. If you want to write that down, you can, right? Different sign upside down. Then we've got this, 3x plus 2y equals 6. But the problem is the slope is not 3, the slope is not 2, and the slope is not 6. If we're going to do finding the slope, we have to be y equals mx plus b form, which is called slope-intercept form. And we are not in slope-intercept form. That's what makes this a medium difficulty question. You have this y here, and you need to get it into slope-intercept form. Now, DESMOS doesn't really do rearranging for you very well. Now, if this question had answer choices that we could also use to help, this question would be probably an easy question, but with just nothing but this answer, we have a medium question. We're going to need to use a pencil, which is a big surprise. On the SOL test, we don't use the pencil very much, to be honest. But we're going to need to use a pencil. We're going to try to isolate this y. And so we're going to try to get everything away from the y. And that's going to start by doing minus 3x, minus 3x. Subtract the 3x to the other side. That's going to make this part go away. We're going to have 2y equals, and I know it's been a long time since we did this, the 6 and the 3 do not combine together because the 6 has no x and the 3.
-3x first.
Yep, negative 3x plus 6. Is this slope-intercept form? Not yet, because we have to have the y all by itself, which means the 2 is still a problem. So, divide by 2, divide by 2, divide by 2. Now the 2 will go away, and our slope-intercept form, y equals negative 3 over 2x. And what is 6 divided by 2? Everybody knows that's going to be 3. So now, we want the perpendicular slope. So we're going to be looking at the slope, negative 3/2, but we don't want the parallel slope. We don't want to clone the slope. We want to make the opposite. So, perpendicular, different sign upside down. So, this one's negative, the perpendicular should be positive. This one's 3 on top of 2. The answer is 2 on top of 3. Okay, that was our medium question of the day. That was the one that's a little bit harder. I'm sure I'm going to have people ask me questions in a bit, and it was a shame you were on your phone when we went through it the first time. But let's see what we got. 3 questions left. Now, yesterday we talked about our ultimate strategy for the SOL test. The ultimate strategy is type question, type answers, find match. Right? That's what we want to do. If you have a multiple choice question, type the question, type the answers, find a match. If I was able to teach a 5th grader how to do that, I really think they would be passing the test or close just based on this strategy. So when I see one like number 8, I think, nice. Multiple choice, I'm guaranteed going to get this question right. Write an equation in slope-intercept form that goes through those 2 points. You know what? I don't want to. I'm just going to type it in and look for a match. -3, 2 and 0, 5. I need one of these answers to be a line that goes through the dots. So what do you think about y equals -x plus 5? Does that go through both of my blue dots? It doesn't really work, right? It only goes through one of these red dots. So letter A, no good. What about letter B? X minus 5, y equals x minus 5. Does that go through my red dots? Nope. What about C? -x, -5. Doesn't work. And then D, x plus 5. Thank you, Ms. Gonzalez. I appreciate that. So it is not until we get to letter D that we find the answer. And listen, what I'll say is, if you're frustrated by algebra, if you want to get out of algebra, if you're doing this review and you're thinking to yourself, I hate this, just pass the test on the first try. The path of least resistance, the shortest amount of algebra that you can do in your life is pass it on the first try, okay? Type it in, find the match. I don't care if you were getting 30s and 40s on the test when we learned this the first time. Type it in, find a match, be done. So let's do 2 more questions here. The next one is -2, -8, and 2, -6. There's my 2 dots. Let's type in some different equations. Y equals 2x minus 8. How does that one look? That's not going to work. What about y equals 2x minus 4? We got one of those dots, but we didn't get both of those dots. What about y equals fraction 1/2 x minus 7? That one looks pretty good. So the answer for this question is going to be C. A missed it. B missed it. And just to prove it to you, letter D obviously misses it as well. There's only one question left. Now this one says write the equation in slope-intercept form. Now remember, that was annoying. We had to move the x, we had to divide, it took us, and we had to write something down. And when it comes to this test, I don't want to write stuff down if I don't have to. So, how can we do this question? Type in the question, type in the answers, look for a match. Now I will say, before we even do that, it says write the equation in slope-intercept form, which we know is y equals mx plus b. Are any of these answers not even in slope-intercept form? Can we just cross off any of these answers before we even start? Okay. I'm getting a little hungry, I understand that. But letter A is just a bad answer, okay? We know that we need slope-intercept form. And letter A is not even close. Letter A says x equals, and we need it to be y equals. Now B, C, D, they all are at least slope-intercept form. I'm not sure if they're right, but they at least could be right. Let's type in the question, 5x minus y equals negative 17. And let's try letter B, y equals 5x minus 17. Are those a match? Well, they kind of look parallel, but we want a match. We want a perfect match. I heard that it was D, so that means C should be wrong, 5x or negative 5x plus 17. That's definitely wrong. And so I heard it was the letter D, 5x plus 17, and that is a perfect match. The blue line goes right on top of the red. And so, there we go. We got the answers. When it comes to the SOL test, if you got multiple choice, you got to get it right. Type the question, type the answers, find the match. I also want to point out to you perpendicular lines, which are opposite reciprocals, and then this slope formula. Make sure that when you do it, if you do it, you put the y numbers on the top. All right, there's plenty of notes on slope and writing equations. Hope this works.